Good Monday morning to you. Kicking off the last week of the first quarter online. That's right, it's day 40, October 19th, Monday. Today you have art, my homeroom, reminder there. We are reading the next to the last chapter today of What is the Constitution? We the People. I will be listening to see if anyone has the preamble memorized. There are two questions today's reading. What are the Bill of Rights and why are they so important? Keep reading your nonfiction and fiction books. Should be reading each day. And we will be completing the expository project today, and we start presenting them tomorrow. We have 10 new words. Example, experience, fatal, flexible, furious, gathered, gist, infer, intelligent, and invitation. And of course, you have your dictionary.com site for the definitions and the spellingtraining.com to learn the spellings. We are focusing today on parentheses and brackets. There's a adorable little Grammaropolis video and a tutoring video on parentheses and brackets, and there's online practice. So that will take care of two more of our 14 punctuation marks. Brand new topic today, and it's all about expository writing, how to make napkin rings. So fix all the mistakes in there. And by the time you get done this week with the editing topic, you'll know how to make napkin rings. We are completing the preamble, Constitution, Bill of Rights, and then we're going to be focused on the election process. This actually will go into the second quarter also. So the first 2 weeks of the second quarter will be wrapping up Declaration, Constitution, election process, and of course, the major national election is Tuesday, November 3rd, 2 weeks from tomorrow. This is your last week to show your skills or to compete. Remember, we are not revisiting continents, oceans, earth layers, and atmosphere layers. So practice one of the other ones and see if you can get somebody else to agree to compete with you. 3 riddles today. Well, first of all, the answers from last week's rebuses. Cut above the rest. There it is, it's above the rest. The wrong end of the stick, common expression. That's also a common expression, a cut above the rest. Sideshow, another common expression. And the last one, tickled pink. Remember, if you're creating a rebus, you really should have it indicate some phrase or expression that is commonly known. Like, I'm as hungry as a horse. Fun fact of the day, your tooth enamel protects your teeth, you know. That's why you brush. Why there's fluoride, it helps keep the enamel strong. It is the hardest substance in the human body. Harder than any bone, any fingernail or thumbnail. But maybe not as hard as your stubbornness. The reading assignment. Actually, I just left everything from chapter 5 onward, and I think for the rest of this week, I'll also include chapters 1 through 4 so you can review it. We're going to get out of this chair and then read our Kindle Cloud Reader. The Bill of Rights. The United States held its first elections under the new Constitution in 1789. George Washington became president, of course. The vote was unanimous. Unanimous. Nobody voted against George Washington. That would never happen again. The new Congress started work on March 4th, 1789. What was their first order of business? To change the Constitution. But we just made it. Well, that's what the first 10 amendments are, the Bill of Rights. While it was being ratified, several states had demanded that a Bill of Rights be added to the Constitution. A Bill of Rights is a list that guarantees people's basic freedoms. So the new Congress set about writing 10 amendments, changes to the Constitution. Who was chosen to write them? James Madison, the father of the Constitution. The states approved 10 of the amendments that Madison wrote. We call those 10 amendments the Bill of Rights. They list personal freedoms for all Americans, freedoms that no one can take away because the Constitution protects them. To many, the Bill of Rights is the heart of the Constitution. The First Amendment is a gold mine of liberties. It protects 5 important rights: freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom to assemble, and the freedom to ask the government to correct wrongs. Now check those out. Oh, it's right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Freedom of religion means you're free to practice any religion you want, and the government can't impose any kind of religion on you. Freedom of speech, you have the freedom to speak out loud your opinions. Freedom of the press, the newspapers can print their stories without the government saying no, no, no. And the freedom to assemble, you can gather together with a group of people and you have the freedom to come to the government and say, we need these things fixed. Freedom of religion wasn't common back in 1787. Several states had state churches. Tax money paid for them. Even people of different faiths had to pay for the state church. In Massachusetts, only Christians were allowed to run for office. Virginia threw Baptists in jail for preaching. The First Amendment ordered states to get rid of these old religious laws. Today, many countries still tell their people what religion to follow. But in America, people can worship any way they please, or not at all. Christians, Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, and atheists, people who do not believe in the existence of God, all share equal rights. The First Amendment says so. Freedom of speech and press means that people can voice their opinions in newspapers, speeches, books, and on TV and on the internet. No one can be punished for speaking their beliefs, even if the government doesn't like what someone says. Of course, there are limits on free speech. For example, falsely yelling "fire" inside of a crowded movie theater is a crime because you're inciting panic. So if you go around spreading stuff and saying things that are patently untrue and defamatory or stir people up, that's not allowed. Under British rule, American colonists were sometimes arrested for disagreeing with the king. And today around the world, harsh governments still lock up citizens who challenge leaders. But in the United States, different points of view keep democracy strong. Can large groups also protest? The First Amendment says yes. People can gather together in large numbers to show resistance to their leaders and laws, just as long as they protest peacefully. In the 1950s and 60s, African American leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. led thousands and thousands of protesters in peaceful marches. The power of the civil rights movement brought about important changes for racial justice. The Second Amendment protects the right of people to own arms. Arms are weapons, such as guns. Why would the Constitution protect gun ownership? The reason given is the Second Amendment is to keep militias well armed. Militias were small armies of citizen soldiers. During the Revolution, militias could gather quickly in case of attack by British soldiers. Today, there are no militias. States have National Guard troops instead. But the Second Amendment still protects the right of Americans to own guns. Millions of gun owners want to safeguard their Second Amendment right. Millions of others point to the shocking gun violence in the United States. The weapons of the 1700s were muskets and rifles. They argue that the framers of the Constitution never imagined automatic weapons being carried on city streets. They want restrictions on who can own weapons, how they can buy them, and what kinds of weapons can be bought. Half of the amendments in the Bill of Rights protect people accused of crimes. They make sure that arrests and trials are fair and that the rights of the accused are protected. Americans suspected of a crime have other rights too. Let's say the police think someone is hiding stolen goods in their house. The police cannot come and do a search without a warrant, a written permission from a judge. The Eighth Amendment says that a convicted criminal cannot receive cruel and unusual punishment. What does this mean? Well, people's ideas about them have changed over time. The colonists often punished people by locking them in public stocks, sometimes for days. Beatings or floggings with a whip were common too. Now these punishments are seen as very cruel to us. Some countries around the globe give harsh punishments. They might stone criminals to death, throw rocks at them, or cut off the hands of thieves. The US Constitution does not permit such cruel acts. Today, the debate about cruel and unusual punishment in America revolves around the death penalty. Some states still put criminals who commit the most severe crimes to death. 19 states, however, have passed laws making the death penalty illegal. They believe that putting someone to death, even if it's done in the most painless way possible, is always cruel and unusual punishment. And that's where we'll stop. The Bill of Rights was the first major addition to the Constitution, but certainly not the last. So there are 10 separate amendments that were all grouped together and called the Bill of Rights. And they are additions to the original Constitution, which was mostly focused on how the government would be run, the three branches of government, who can run for office, how long they can be in office, etc. It really didn't talk much about what government should do with these three branches of government. The Bill of Rights does talk about that in detail, about how the government should act towards its citizens. And that's a wrap. And also, I'll be sharing the complete Bill of Rights with you, plus a simplified version. A simplified version, just like with the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. We will see you soon on this Monday, and be ready to share something because it's Circle Monday. So we're going to get our little metaphorical circle, because we can't really get into a circle online, and share what we did over the weekend, or if anything fabulous happened, like the Rays going to the World Series and the Bucks beating the mighty Green Bay Packers and the Cincinnati Bengals losing again. See you soon.